Outside, an old house creaks near the train tracks. It rumbles when the bullet trains pass by, and the fireflies of Tennessee are brilliantly embered each time the vibrations shake the land. Inside, a program is narrated. Today on planet Earth, we send out exploration bots equipped with complex algorithms and AI capabilities. Their main function is to analyze tree and fungus networks within forests. Disguised as insects, they collect pheromones and analyze biochemical processes through whole colonies of these bots deployed by Oregon State University. The program went on inside the smart glasses, worn by a fella named Redmond Floyd. He took the glasses off and took a sip of coffee. Exiting the room, he went down the portrait-dawned hallway to a locked art studio. Portraits hung on the wall in watercolor, oil, and acrylic paints. Paintings of the two-bys, who had long replaced musicians. Paintings of cities during sunrise and sunsets, and mosaics of surveillance pigeons lined both sides of the narrow hall. He pulled out some keys and knocked twice. "Come in, Red," Elizabeth cried ecstatically from the room. He fumbled a bit with the locks as he listened to his sister's command. "See, your art is improving since you got those OI." Redmond was fond of his sister's skill with the brush. She had several portraits and still lifes all over the studio. Nobody was allowed in there except for her brother. Optometrical implants were a newly developed technology responsible for giving sight to the blind. Elizabeth lost her sight gradually from ages 12 to 29. Now at 32, she could see again, paint again, and even leave the house. Except Elizabeth hadn't left the house since her implants were put in. Before that, it had been to go to her parents' funeral a week after her 26th birthday. Both her parents had been called outside at night, and right after the new ordinances had been passed too. There were curfew ordinances passed by City Council in the early spring of 21-24, enforced by artificially intelligent police officers. There were many lives lost in the first few weeks of the ordinance being passed. Most people got used to being inside by 8 p.m. with a 10-minute grace period, a 20-minute ticketing period, and after that, you're toast. Redmond, having seen it all from the window of their family house, did not like to bring the subject up. But he knew it was the cause of his sister Elizabeth's agoraphobia. She had the internet to order anything she needed. And while most people considered her life very ordinary, using modern conventions to get by with minimal outside time, she had much fear of any external influence, or even looking past her curtains. She set down her brush and noticed her optometrical implants needed an update. She enabled the software update and saw that it came with a free immersive virtual reality game. That's new. She selected the game, which had an interesting setting. It was set in the mid-20th century. The area was a rural suburb. Houses in close proximity with fences and a bit of land. Near barns, something unheard of in 21-24. Rows of gardens and houses, dogs and cats. Some yards grassier, with more acreage grazed by cattle or horses, lined up by the road where Elizabeth stood. She was out in the open. She felt naked. In this world, she very much wanted to leave. She very much wanted to exit the game and return to her studio and paint some more. However, as she tried to exit, she realized the game would not let her. A brief flash appeared to her eyes. A calendar on the wall next to a clock. Blink. The calendar and clock remained. Blink. Then she returned to the game. She looked around for a visual exit, but could not find one. Finally, exasperated and scared, she said clearly, "Exit game, please." Nothing happened. Another brief flash occurred. A baby in a cradle looked up at Elizabeth. Blink. The game returned. Huh. Elizabeth was concerned with these flashes and worried that her inability to leave the game was a bug in the system. Panic began to pound in her chest, and her teeth gnashed and her fingers busy bending nervously, sweat pouring from her temples around her optometrical implants. Finally, someone else appeared in the game. A tall man with an avatar wearing 1950s style suit. He had a book of sheet music for piano in his hands. Elizabeth realized her paintbrush was in her hands again. She could feel the room. If she tried, but mostly she felt the cool, crisp air of a summer night. She could smell fair food, and suddenly in the distance saw a carnival of sorts, lit up in all its glory. The avatar approached Elizabeth. Any possibility that you, dear, know how to exit this game? No clue, she chuckled nervously and added, I wish I knew. He smiled and looked onwards toward the carnival. He had been walking that direction for quite some time. He looked at the book in his hands, and Elizabeth saw her paintbrush. He looked up at her eyes and said, I take it you're an artist, miss. Floyd, Elizabeth Floyd, and yes, I have painted since I was a toddler. Who do I have the honor of conversing with in these strange circumstances? Liam's the name. Liam Black. I'm a musician. I'm actually deaf and blind, and beginning to think my implants are hacked by AI malware. There's the OIs, there's the CIs, and the AIs. There's all the eyes but me, he joked. I was updating my cochlear implants after a practice session on my baby Grand when my optometrical implants showed me an option to play this free game. Why, Liam? The same thing happened to me. I was painting in my studio when this game was loaded without me asking, and no exit from the ad, actually. I'm beginning to wonder how long we'll be stuck in this game. The two avatars looked curiously on at the carnival with its mix of electric lights and camp torches all around the tents and fair rides, carousels, and the big, giant Ferris wheel. I wonder if we'll find out in that there carnival, Liam wondered out loud. I don't know, I'm wondering if the main menu isn't where we first spawned. Elizabeth's agoraphobia kicked in, making her almost unsure that Liam was even a real person. That's strange we both being blind ended up on this game. It's like that malware targeted our optometrical implants. What do you think? I don't know, myself. Liam's fears resonated with Elizabeth so much that she decided he might be real after all. She could sense the fear in his silence. Reluctantly, she decided to follow him to the carnival in the far-off distance beyond the hills. They did not see a road, but the land was free of civilization. Just a patch of trees. Otherwise, grass and hills lay between them and the shiny lights luring them in that direction. There had to be other people there, they both decided. Now it was curious to see if those people were also blind or deaf, using the technology that brought both Elizabeth and Liam there. They were both trapped in a game with no clear objectives. All they had to lead them was each other, and the promise of meeting others at the red and orange and yellow black lights that hung near the fairgrounds. A half hour had passed. "How long have we been walking?" Elizabeth posed the question to Liam. "I don't know, but it does seem to be getting a little bit closer." The two kept walking past some trees, and as they walked out of the growth, brilliant bright lights attacked their senses up close, and the carnival laid before them, with its moving parts spinning vertically and horizontally and lights flashing, tents flapping, and steam coming out of deep fryers and concession booths. The aromas were heavenly, the sights fanciful, but something seemed off. There were no people around. They continued their walk past a Ferris wheel and a water tank booth. They saw a tent where they heard loud music playing. They both entered it. Elizabeth's hand grabbed Liam's. His face flushed for a second when he realized he needed a hand to hold as well. The tent was filled with distorted mirrors. In a maze of passageways and hallways, the array of distorted mirrors, each manipulating one's reflection, making comical and horrifying images of oneself. They lined up the walls as Liam and Elizabeth could not help but move side to side, up and down, making goofy faces and quoting cartoon characters resembling their funny reflections. All the fun was had until they exited the maze successfully and saw the lively but lifeless carnival all around them. "There's nobody here," Liam said, shocked and dismayed. The two looked from tent to tent, finding masks and plates of half-eaten food and PA systems behind desks with cash registers and ticket buckets. But none of the writing was legible. There were no avatars, no signs of life. The virtual reality game continued on. Elizabeth and Liam left the Hall of Mirrors to see the abandoned carnival continuing to function and breathe. The carousel spun with no operator, at least to their knowledge. They finally stumbled on some tubis playing eerie-sounding nocturnes on calliopes. Both of them heard a rustle from behind. Liam spun around as Elizabeth clutched his arm. Whatever it was had rapid flexibility and stealth, for the two virtual stragglers only saw black and brown blurring through the various tents and pathways of the carnival. The game was giving them a boss to fight. "Okay, we need weapons." Liam began to get very paranoid, tried reassuring himself. "We just need weapons and we can fight bosses till we get out of this game." Elizabeth trembled, began to look around and found nothing detachable or breakable to turn into a weapon. The tents were impossible to take apart, and the only long, sharpish object she had was her paintbrush. This gave her an idea. She took it out of her dress pockets to try a hunch. It just occurred to her that the objects they held were also in the hands of the game's avatars. The paintbrush in her hand was dry and clean. She waved it in the air, and to her surprise, as she painted it in her mind's eye, a large wooden stake appeared. She painted again, trying a large knife, but to her disappointment, another wooden stake appeared. She just handed it to Liam, who looked very pale, as if he had seen a ghost. His lower lip was shaking when he began to scream, "Run!" Elizabeth glanced from their tent towards the carousel where Liam had been gazing. A large bat-like man hung upside down, slowly spreading his large wings and waking up to the moonrise. It was a vampire, of course, and the two unwilling players of this horror-themed game shot off like bullets towards the exit of the carnival as the creature's red eyes opened and a sharp row of teeth were bared. All the rides were moving, steam blowing out of various places, and lights flew by as our players, with their eyes struck by carnival lights that blinked in rhythms. Elizabeth and Liam kept running, hand in hand. It was a habit of the blind, and as they sprinted to safety, barriers of all kinds, such as fences and locked gates that were not scalable, arose higher and higher. "We have to use the wooden stakes," Liam cried out. Liam plunged towards the creature, who was flapping its wings violently toward them. Wind produced beneath the creature and its momentum, and it sailed twice the speed of Liam's sprint. The two collided in a bat-wing-wrapped frenzy of blood, accompanied by Liam's shouting and the creature's shrieks. They were curled up together on the ground. The wings struggled for a bit, until Liam broke out of the stake creature of the night's grasp. To Elizabeth's relief, Liam had won the fight, and as the two smiled in victory, a second pair of wings were flapping towards them from behind Elizabeth's direction. She steadied her stake in both hands, when that weird bug in the game caused her to see those temporary visions again. So all of a sudden she's in an office, facing a wall, with a calendar and a clock. Blink. A baby cried in its cradle as she bent down to comfort it. Blink. A chessboard glitched and glitched when the vampire was right in her face. Instantly she gave it no chance as she plunged the stake right into its chest. Blood gushed, bones cracked. The wings spasmed and the creature shrieked its death-rattling cry. "Nice one," Liam sighed. They both went back to the entrance of the Hall of Mirrors to reconvene and strategize something of a plan. "So you can paint weapons. That's amazing. Think you could paint a door out of this game?" Liam chuckled, half serious in his question. Elizabeth shook her shoulders and calmly raised her paintbrush. "I can try." She made patient strokes in midair as the two eyes, as artificially intelligent musicians, strangely out of place in this game, played very uplifting, ecstatic music on ancient-sounding calliopes. The door appeared as she painted it. They immediately tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. Locked. Elizabeth sounded really frustrated. The two tired game players tried various ideas of painting keys, none of which fit the door and dissolved as soon as painted. The night stayed night for endless hours. The game had no daytime. The carnival stayed lit In the hellish warmness and weariness, a voice singing faded in the distance. It sang, "Bring me back my Louis to me. Bring back my Louis so dear to me." What a creepy game, Liam sighed. "So, Liam, I see your book of music." "Yeah, I dabble. I play a lot of instruments. I had my piano book because I was attempting to transpose some songs for saxophone." Elizabeth's mind was already at work. "Pull out that book, Liam." She began painting a saxophone as she remembered them. They were an odd shape to paint for someone who wasn't quite acquainted. But the game filled in the rest of the details. The brass valves, the bell, and woodwind mouthpiece all completed it. She handed the golden instrument to Liam, who smiled curiously at her, wondering where she was going with this. Instantly, he began to play music that synced with the two-bys, and the Hall of Mirrors bounced the melodies off its glass walls, echoing through the carnival, when it was all interrupted by a knock. The door Elizabeth had drawn was calling to be opened. The knob within reach, she hesitated. Liam waited as well, saying, "Well, go on." 3 more loud, ominous knocks came at the door, this time with ravenous laughter. Elizabeth gulped and turned the doorknob, opening the door just a little, when out came 3 hideous clowns with evil faces, laughing maniacally and dancing down the hall of distorted mirrors. They had sharp teeth and little guns, little clown guns, and the 2 digital stragglers found themselves once again faced with one of the game's bosses. A group of 3 clowns, 2 vampires, 3 clowns. Liam wondered what was next. 4 werewolves? They ran to the entrance, which was blocked off, and thinking quickly, Elizabeth painted 2 weapons quickly for the both of them. They looked like guns, but made out of bicycle horns, very comical and clownish. The 2 seized their new weapons reluctantly, hoping it made just as much sense as everything else going on. Liam set down his magical saxophone. Elizabeth pocketed her brush, and holding their strange steampunk clown guns, they began shooting. Mirrors broke every other shot. 1 clown perished in the first round, the other 2 shouting angrily between fits of manic laughter, scattering about the hall. No way of surely knowing evil reflection from evil clown. They kept shooting when 1 clown, with a bloody grimace, poked his head up above a mirror in a stupid error. Elizabeth mowed him down with 2 shots, each going through the clown's thick-collared neck. Liam finally shot the last clown after breaking the last 2 mirrors in the hall. He carefully stepped towards Elizabeth and guided her by hand out of the tent. He grabbed his saxophone with his other hand, as it was a special gift, a gift of music. Sweet music and melody in a turbulent time, disrupted by harmonies between the 2-bys and his saxophone. Elizabeth let go of Liam's hand. He looked at her worried face, then towards the direction she was facing. 4 2-bys, Those half robot, half brass instrument, an anthropomorphic mess of mechanical parts and horn valves and bells. They played their calliopes surrounding the exit of the tent, gating the two in the exit area. Liam knew instinctively he must play with them. The weapon had already been drawn. The 5 musicians played wondrously, the carnival fading. The game world turned into a smitten blackness, then a void of whiteness, until the 2 players saw no carnival, no carousel, no clowns, vampires, dangling lights and torches surrounded by tents and rides, no more neatly tucked away suburbs and farms, night sky or grass. Everything vanished except the door Elizabeth had drawn. Liam's saxophone disappeared too, but the 2 buys remained in front of them. The game players felt like they knew the game had been fault. So, Liam, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it was actually kind of fun. I agree. We should. Elizabeth interrupted. We should meet up, in the real world. My brother can loan me his car. He's been sick and on disability for a few months, taking care of me as well as I him. I assume you're American, right? Yeah. Well, I'd love to meet the man behind the avatar. The 2 buys emitted a message in a robotic voice, and as Liam heard in his cochlear implants and Elizabeth in her headset, they heard the message the tubas had to give. Malware successfully cleaned. No more viruses detected. Would you like to listen to some music? No, they both commanded simultaneously. Elizabeth looked to Liam and said, Elizabeth Floyd, Nashville, Tennessee, Sunrise Boulevard, near the closed pizzeria. Liam Black, Louisville, Kentucky, 4th Avenue and Acorn. Then the 2 gave each other a hug, simultaneously said, Exit game. Elizabeth found herself in her studio. She wondered about Liam, if he'd ever tried to meet up with her. Their time together was scary and anxiety-inducing, but fun and adventurous. She yearned to hear more of his melodies and songs and maybe get to know him a little better. When the news update flashed upon their optometrical implants, widespread virus in smartwear, eyeglasses, eye contacts, cochlear, and optometrical implants have all been affected. Do not open the free game. Authorities are working on a virus hacker AI to fix the problem. Widespread virus mysteriously fought by unknown bots. Our configurations do not show any evidence that someone or anything really fought off the virus. Leading smartware engineer Bill Lyons said in a press meeting, We think some of our already programmed safety measures fought it off. Some have been affected. We have issued replacement implants for each and every one of our customers. The foreman of smartware company ThinkSense reassured the public at 1 p.m. today that the problem at hand is fixed and solved. Bullshit, Elizabeth said, laughing. Then a ding came on her social media page. A notification said Liam Black wants to be your friend. She smiled. She hit accept, and the 2 arranged a meeting. Liam had an appointment in Nashville and used this as an excuse to meet Elizabeth. His appointment was with a young audiologist who was also deaf. Just so happened his appointment was already made for Dr. Randy Williamson, and his associate, Dr. Tom Choate. They were completely booked, replacing their clients' cochlears after having their clinic relocated just weeks before. The two unwilling fighters of malware met and held hands, signing an international tactile sign language as Liam adjusted to his new cochlear implants. He was taken by Elizabeth to her downtown studio, where she showed him her many portraits and still lifes. The two decided to keep their journey a secret, and as they both put on their optometrical implants, they saw each other for the first time, and they each had never seen such beauty in another person. Their conversations flowed through several late nights in bookstores, galleries, and soda shops, with a constant cup of caffeine as their companion. They strolled through Nashville's avenues and boulevards, hand in hand. She let him stay in her guest bedroom as the curfew had passed. As they each smiled to themselves in their own rooms, thinking about tomorrow with glee, a lonesome, anthropomorphic mess of buttons and screens, brass bells and valves began to play a song outside on the sidewalk. Trash scurried by it with the wind, lights fading away one by one. It was not loud enough to be heard inside the buildings around it. The tuba played an ancient hymn. Ezekiel saw the wheel. Unregistered and unsanctioned, the bot surely bastardized the hymn with its artificial intelligence guiding its notes and arrangements. A group of ordnance officer bots surrounded it, unable to find any record or schedule allowing this bot to perform to the empty streets. They quickly disassembled the tuba, brought the parts back to headquarters. There, the individual valves, buttons, and robotic components lay dormant for some time. Nobody but the tubas knew what lay in store for tomorrow. Nobody suspected anything. People and bots alike went on with their lives and functions. Outside, the moon shone fluorescent blue through the purple sky that danced with silent lightning. Not a soul in sight.